Silicon Valley's brightest minds are no longer just shaping your phone, they're shaping the future of warfare. But at what cost?
Billion-dollar contracts, executives in uniform, AI making life or death decisions. This isn't science fiction. It's happening now.
Who's really calling the shots? And can we trust algorithms with the power of war? The line between innovation and destruction has never been thinner.
Imagine a world where the lines between battlefield command and corporate boardrooms aren't just blurred, they're practically erased. What happens when tech giants who shape our daily digital lives also shape the future of warfare?
Okay, wow. Let's unpack this. Today, we're diving into a really compelling and frankly pretty complex intersection. We're talking about the rapid integration of artificial intelligence and, all this cutting-edge technology straight from Silicon Valley right into our military and defense structures. You've shared this fascinating pile of articles, research reports, and honestly, some really fiery online debates. So our goal for this deep dive is to kind of cut through all that noise. We want to uncover the most crucial insights about this evolving and sometimes, unsettling relationship. We're going to explore how this whole new era of digital warfare is fundamentally reshaping everything, from multi-billion-dollar defense contracts to who's actually making the critical decisions, high up in the Pentagon.
Yeah. And what's truly striking, I think, is just the sheer speed of it all, how fast this relationship is changing.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about a shift that goes way beyond the traditional defense contractors we usually think about. Companies that, they define our everyday commercial tech world. They're now deeply, deeply embedded in national security. This situation, it raises some really important questions, not just about, say, efficiency and capability. Those are obviously big drivers.
Sure.
But also about ethics, about transparency, and maybe most profoundly about the very nature of military leadership itself and power dynamics. So you're going to hear about everything from what some people are calling a new military-industrial complex, to these maybe more subtle shifts in who holds the influence, and of course this intense global race for AI dominance.
Okay, so we often hear about the traditional military-industrial complex, right? That intertwined relationship between government, the military, and defense companies. But looking at the material you've pulled together, it feels like there's a big new dynamic here. What's the core shift that's happening? And who are these key players emerging?
Well, I think a critical shift is that the whole idea of the battleground has expanded.
Mm-hmm.
It now includes control over essential knowledge and, crucially, digital infrastructure. Think about it. Cloud computing, advanced AI, new satellite systems. These aren't just military tools anymore.
Oh, they're everywhere.
Exactly. They are what we call dual-use technologies. They're absolutely essential for modern civilian life. And they're also deeply integrated into military operations. So companies like Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Oracle, they aren't just, vendors selling stuff anymore. They are foundational players in what's really starting to look like a digital military-industrial complex.
Yeah, and it's not just a theory, is it? The reports you shared show pretty compelling evidence of this integration happening right now. We saw Project Maven, for instance, Google involved in surveillance software for military drones. That rings a bell.
It does.
Then there's the CIA's Big Cloud Initiative, the commercial cloud enterprise. Contracts going to AWS, Alphabet, IBM, Microsoft, Oracle. So it's a who's who. And even the NSA awarding that massive $10 billion wild and stormy contract to AWS just to move intelligence data onto Amazon's cloud.
10 billion?
Yeah. And then, of course, the Joint Warfighting Cloud Capability, JWCC. That's another huge multi-cloud project. About $9 billion, right? Awarded by the DoD to Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and Oracle again. It really paints a picture of, deep reliance.
It really does. What truly stands out when you look at why this is happening is this idea of mutual dependence.
Mutual dependence. How so?
Well, for these huge tech giants, public investment, these government contracts, they provide a massive source of capital. It fuels accumulation, innovation. It's almost like a guaranteed market for their most advanced high-margin products.
Okay,
And in return, the government gets access to truly cutting-edge technologies, stuff that maybe traditional defense contractors, who often spend less on that kind of foundational R&D, simply can't provide as quickly or effectively.
Yeah,
Plus, there's the other side, the significant influence these tech companies wield through massive lobbying efforts. The data you found points to over $250 million spent just between 2020 and 2024 by the major tech firms.
Wow.
Yeah, actively shaping policy, shaping public opinion to favor their integration. It's a very symbiotic relationship, we could say,
Yeah,
but one with a lot of facets to consider.
okay. So we've talked big picture, the contracts, the lobbying, but the material you shared also points to something really interesting, maybe even a bit concerning at the individual level. We're actually seeing prominent tech executives being commissioned as senior army officers. I'm thinking of LD Kulshankar from Palantir and that Meta executive, Bosworth. What exactly is going on there? What's the immediate ripple effect?
Yeah, it's intriguing, isn't it? And the immediate implications are quite striking. Take Shankar, for example.
Yeah,
He reportedly sold Palantir stock for, what was it, $367 million last year.
huge number.
Right. And he plans to donate his officer compensation, maybe $10,000 a year, to Army Emergency Relief, which is, a statement in itself. But look at the timing. Coinciding with Bosworth's The Meta Execs commissioning met our partners with Anduril on military AI and augmented reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then OpenAI announces a $200 million defense contract. Palantir itself, remember, had that massive $759 million AI deal during the Trump administration. These don't really feel like random coincidences, do they?
No, it suggests something more direct.
It strongly suggests a direct, maybe accelerated alignment of corporate interests with military objectives, and it raises these pointed questions about whether these commissionings are really about public service, or maybe more about unlocking lucrative government access and shaping policy from the inside.
That definitely sounds like it could stir up controversy. And while you said military and Pentagon officials seem supportive, wanting that tech talent, the online discussions you included, they are far less, charitable.
Quote, defense.
Some users straight up called it seditious conspiracy or cronyism. Others saw it as a total power move just to get special access to decisions, source selection, even privileged info. I mean, one person, and I'm quoting directly here from the discussion, asked, "Did we seriously just put a Palantir exec into uniform? That's the worst possible choice I could imagine. And Facebook, I just barfed in my mouth."
Yeah, that's strong language.
Very strong reaction.
It absolutely is. And it brings up this really critical point about conflicts of interest, because apparently these newly commissioned officers, they're not required to recuse themselves from DoD business dealings that involve their own company.
Seriously, no recusal?
That's what the reporting suggests. This exemption is sparking some serious concerns about ethical losses, potential favoritism, you name it.
Mm-hmm.
Some critics were even drawing parallels to the post-Soviet Russian military, arguing money could buy leadership spots. Or they compared it to how Putin created private military forces.
Oof, those are heavy comparisons.
Very heavy.
Yeah.
Now, it's important to note the other side. Army spokesman emphasized that direct commissioning of experts isn't new. It has historical precedent, especially, quote, ahead of wartime, to prepare and deter.
Okay, so there's a defense for it.
Right? The military's position is it's a way to bring vital expertise in quickly.
Yeah.
But the public debate, it certainly highlights a deep ethical tension here, a real friction point.
Let's shift gears a bit now and talk about the core technology itself, artificial intelligence. AI. How do the sources you looked at actually define AI? And what are the military's main interests in using it?
Well, the research generally defines AI pretty broadly, something like the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. The focus is really on developing systems that have human-like intellectual processes.
Okay.
So, in essence, it's about creating computer programs that can solve problems, achieve goals as effectively as humans can, and sometimes maybe even better. Now, the military, perhaps predictably, sees huge benefits, especially in tasks they categorize as dull, dirty, and dangerous.
Right, the 3Ds?
Exactly. The idea is AI can dramatically reduce risk to human soldiers by replacing them in hazardous environments like, say, clearing IEDs or operating in areas with chemical contamination. It also promises what they call superhuman abilities,
Like what?
like the capacity to withstand much higher G-forces in flight than a human pilot or reacting with speeds just beyond human capability, things that could provide a decisive edge in combat.
Okay, that sounds like an obvious, plus taking soldiers out of harm's way, but are there any, I don't know, inherent risks in relying so heavily on AI for those dull, dirty, and dangerous jobs? Are we maybe sacrificing some human intuition or adaptability? And what are some of the really striking real-world examples you found?
Those are absolutely crucial questions. And yes, while the benefits seem clear, the risks of over-reliance, that's a constant discussion point even within the military itself. The emphasis, at least officially, remains on AI as a tool, something to augment human capabilities, not necessarily replace critical decision-making where, nuance and ethics are paramount. As for examples, gosh, the applications are incredibly diverse. In logistics, for instance, the Army used IBM's Watson for predictive maintenance on vehicles. They estimated significant cost savings just by identifying potential failures before they happened.
Smart.
Yeah. AI can optimize the entire supply chain: food, medical supplies, fuel, weapons, you name it. For intelligence and reconnaissance, AI is sorting through just unimaginable amounts of data, identifying patterns, potential threats, way faster than human analysts ever could. In cyberspace, AI helps defend critical networks against really sophisticated attacks. And DARPA is even working on tools, things like Metaphor and Semaphore, specifically to combat deepfakes.
Ah, the deepfakes.
Right? Which could be weaponized for blackmail or, massive disinformation campaigns. And then you have the autonomous vehicles. We're seeing things like loyal wingmen, unmanned F-16s flying alongside manned aircraft. The Marine Corps has the MUTT, that's the Multi-Utility Tactical Transport, basically a robotic mule following soldiers and carrying their gear.
Like a robot pack horse.
Pretty much. And the Navy's got the Sea Hunter, that unmanned vessel designed for long-range submarine tracking. The scope is it's breathtaking, really.
But of course, every powerful tool has a flip side, right? What are some of the really significant ethical and maybe practical concerns that pop up when we talk about AI in a warfare, especially around things like law to be used lethal autonomous weapon systems?
Yeah, laws. That's the ultimate ethical frontier here, isn't it?
Yeah.
The core question is just how much autonomy do we actually give these systems, particularly when it involves lethal force?
Exactly.
Now, the U.S. military says it doesn't currently have laws in its inventory. An official policy requires human supervision for lethal force, a human in the loop or on the loop.
Okay, that's the official line.
That's the official line. But the debate is incredibly intense and ongoing. One major concern is just AI's inherent unpredictability. Remember Google's AlphaGo, the Go-playing AI?
Vaguely, yeah.
It developed these totally unconventional strategies that no human would ever think of. Brilliant for winning a game of Go.
But terrifying in war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Terrifying if you apply that kind of unpredictable logic to real-world combat where the rules aren't so neat and tidy, and then there's that escalating risk of deepfakes just evolving faster than our ability to detect them. That could lead to potentially catastrophic disinformation.
And what about the people involved, the human element? Specifically, how do the tech workers themselves view these applications? The material you sent over mentions a civil-military divide. What does that mean in practice?
It means there's a noticeable divergence in perspectives between people in the tech industry and the military establishment. There was this fascinating survey you found. It showed that Silicon Valley tech workers, they're generally okay and generally comfortable with AI being used for non-lethal battlefield support.
Okay.
Or in situations where a human makes the final lethal decision. They're fine with that. However, their comfort levels drop. like significantly when you talk about unsupervised lethal force being deployed by AI. Very. They also tend to trust their own employers more than other tech companies or government institutions when it comes to the ethical development and deployment of AI. And this isn't just academic, it has tangible implications. Some major companies, Google being the most famous example, have actually canceled government contracts or prohibited future military work specifically for ethical reasons.
Oh, like Project Maven again?
Exactly.
Oh,
And that directly impacts the DoD's ability to recruit and retain the top AI talent they need. Especially since government salaries often, lag way behind the commercial sector.
so it's a talent war, but with this big ethical dimension.
Precisely. A talent war with ethics right at its heart.
Now, this whole rapid acceleration, it isn't just happening in the US, is it? The reports make it really clear there's a global AI arms race heating up, significant international competition.
Oh, absolutely. Not just American. If you connect this to the bigger global picture, China is unequivocally the United States' closest competitor in this whole domain.
Right.
Their 2017 plan, the Next Generation AI Development Plan, it's incredibly ambitious. They're aiming for world-leading AI investment by 2030. Their core AI industry was already worth over, $21 billion back in 2020.
Wow.
And what's really critical to understand about China's approach is their practice of military-civil fusion.
Military-civil fusion.
Yeah. It essentially means the state directly guides AI development across the board and ensures there's a seamless transfer of civilian technology breakthroughs directly into military applications. There's not the same kind of separation you might see elsewhere.
Interesting.
Plus, they're leveraging these absolutely vast pools of data. They're on track to possess something like 30% of the entire world's data by 2030.
30%.
Which is a huge advantage for training AI models. Data is the fuel for AI.
And we've even seen evidence of significant Chinese investment in US AI companies, right? Something like $1.3 billion between 2010 and 2017. Although it seems like US reforms, like CFIUS, that's the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, they're increasing oversight now.
Yes, exactly. The U.S. is definitely tightening the reins on that front, scrutinizing those investments much more closely for national security risks. And while China is clearly the primary challenger, we shouldn't forget Russia. They're also actively developing military AI. Things like AI-powered missiles, unmanned systems, they're in the game too.
So it's a multipolar race.
It is. And globally, you have international bodies, like the UN Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, the CCW, and the OECD. They're grappling with trying to establish principles for trustworthy AI, trying to regulate laws, but honestly, the progress on creating these international norms is incredibly slow. It's really struggling to keep pace with just how fast the technology itself is advancing.
Yeah.
It really highlights the huge challenge of governance in such a rapidly evolving, high-stakes field.
So this deep dive into the intersection of big tech, AI, and military strategy, it really does highlight just how quickly our world is changing. I mean, from boardrooms getting this direct commissioned path straight into the Pentagon, to algorithms potentially grappling with life or death decisions. The very future of conflict is being rewritten, right before our eyes. And for you, the listener, understanding these dynamics, it isn't just about military affairs, is it? It's really about transparency, about ethics, and about these evolving power structures that are shaping our society at some really deep levels.
Absolutely. And it prompts, I think, a deeper inquiry for all of us. As the technology continues its relentless advance, and as these lines between civilian innovation and military application blur even further. Now, how do we as a global society ensure that this pursuit of speed and efficiency in defense doesn't inadvertently compromise the fundamental values we hold, values like accountability and human oversight? It's a huge question, and it's one that demands, I think, continuous scrutiny, requires transparent dialogue, and really needs active engagement from all of us long after these headlines fade away.